It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Aggronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things, and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belgast, and let's start the show. Hey folks, it's that time again, time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 354. Tonight I'm joined by Ammo.
Hello.
Ashgar.
Hi.
Kodra.
Hooray!
Tam.
Hello.
And Thalen.
Hi there.
So...
Oh, no shenanigans.
No shenanigans, no. Like, I mean, you're usually the chief shenanigans officer.
Details.
So, okay. I'm gonna backpedal a little bit. I'm mostly known for playing tanks and DPS-y things that hit things with large weapons.
Mm-hmm.
I was annoyed by the fact that, like, I had one job grade out in Final Fantasy XIV. And while I was leveling the rest of my deck's jobs, I thought I might as well get Dancer taken care of.
Yeah.
Dancer's freaking fun. Like, it is a really good class.
It's pretty entertaining.
It is never a thing that I thought I would have liked, but I really like Dancer. It feels like a melee, but is arranged. And also has all sorts of weird group buff mechanics.
Yeah, it has a lot of, the thing that you apply to a party member and then, like, buffs apply to them, and you get, I think your bar goes up when they make attacks when you activate certain things, and And then there's like this splash AoE heal thing that you get, which can kind of save the team, and also they get the same ability as Tactician, which is basically like the oh no, incoming damage here. Here's a quick buff to resistance. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all the physical range to have that.
Yep.
I have no clue what it's called on Bard because I've not really played Bard since that was a thing.
Troubadour? Okay. But yeah, like, Dancer's freaking fun, and it gives me a lot of hope for what the new class designs are going to look like, because I think Reaper's going to be interesting, since it shares an item type with Dragoons. It's about time something did.
Yeah. But
does it share Spear?
Well, so it has a scythe, but it shares all the Dragoon armor.
Maiming.
Yeah, the of maiming stuff finally has somebody to share it with. But yeah, so I don't know, I think maybe they're getting better at class design every time they knock out a new class.
I mean, it makes sense.
Because Dancer's really cool. Gunblade is cool in its own way.
Yeah.
It's not always a thing that I like it's doing, but it's kind of cool. Red Mage was great.
Yeah, Red Mage is a lot of fun.
What came in at the same time as Red Mage?
Samurai.
Yeah, and I like Samurai a lot.
Samurai has the do a lot of damage button, followed by the do even more damage button.
Yep.
I think that their class design is definitely getting better, and I think that there's some older class design that could use an overhaul.
Yeah, a little bit.
And they have gone back through and reworked some classes, like Machinist.
Yeah.
I mean, Machinist felt real bad.
Yes.
Machinist is a completely new class, and the one they have now is much better than the one they had before.
Oh yeah, like Machinist is probably my favorite DPS right now. Hands down.
I think Summoner, Scholar, and Dragoon could use a ground up redesign.
Yes, Dragoon most definitely could. Scholar, I feel like Scholar is going to be basically outclassed by Sage.
Scholar is the closest.
Scholar needs a ground up redesign in order for that to not happen.
Yeah.
I mean, I like Scholar, but I think, Magitech Healer is going to just be the better bubble healer.
Well, is Sage going to have a what's it called?
A fairy? No.
Yeah. Well, that's something different.
It has mags instead.
Yeah, it basically has mags from PSO.
You heal with laser beams. It's better.
I'm excited.
But basically they're going to have Sage and Scholar be bubble healers. and Astrologian and White Mage be throughput healers.
And this is sort of where my criticism of their class design comes to play, because boy, could their classes be more creative. They are not. They're you can kind of break them out into physical melee, physical range, tank, caster, healer, and they follow they all follow really similar, very traditional play patterns. I don't know. I think you could do more creative stuff with class design.
As somebody who's starting to play around with controller-based play, would really like to see them limit to about 16 buttons.
Like, they've definitely done some work moving towards that. They could do more.
So Dragoon feels like it's on about 18 buttons.
Yeah, Dragoon has too many buttons. It's like, that's...
Yeah. See also Summoner.
We've talked about this. They need to take the system they have for PvP of the one button combos and put that into PvE.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, Dragoon has about 8 less buttons.
Ooh, you're selling me on 8 less buttons.
Well, I mean, honestly, the PvP hotbar thing just feels tighter in general.
Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely.
So I think
that.
While I would also very much like to see more creative class designs, I think one of the things this game does very well, very, very well, is interclass balance.
This is true.
Yeah.
There is, basically since the start of this expansion, there have not been any classes that are not viable for all content.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that is definitely, it
and
feels like a conscious trade-off that they've made.
Yeah, it does feel like a conscious trade-off. Because yes, you
lose differentiation.
Yes.
Yeah. You're kind of like.
But on the other hand, you don't have to worry about designing a class like the Rift Bard.
Right. Yeah, I mean, having played every melee class to some extent at this point, it's like, yeah, all right. Basically, they all feel broadly the same to me at a high level. And the details of what are you doing to keep up your crucial buff and what is the overall flow differ slightly, but and where is the damage focused? But otherwise, because they're so similar, it's relatively easy to tweak them into some semblance of balance.
I mean, yes, it's basically maintain as much uptime as possible and press your buttons at a high level.
But I guess for me, I would like to see them do what the decks physical ranged have done, because Bard and Machinist and Dancer feel completely different. And they're doing the same thing, basically, but they feel vastly different. At least to me, they do. But they're all basically the same niche.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to be fair, Black Mage and Summoner feel different. Mm-hmm. But it's still set up your house of cards so you can hit your fun buttons as often as possible.
Yeah.
It's just that for a Black Mage, you're hitting your fun button about every third cast on average, whereas on the Summoner, you're hitting your fun button about every minute.
I think Summoner suffers from the same problem that some of the Warlock specs do in WoW. Because, Destruction Warlock is basically just a budget mage. And I think Summoner, I don't know, I feel like Summoner really needs to play more into the fact that it's a pet class. And more interaction with the pets.
I don't feel like Final Fantasy 14 pets feels like they feel less like pets than most pet classes do.
I mean, they're not even.
That's the problem.
They're not even pet classes anymore. The pet is purely the pet at this point is purely it's a dot with a fancy animation.
Yeah, it's not an entity of its own anymore.
Yeah, it's not an entity anymore.
They're just more buttons now.
And
appreciate that they have buttons that make them do things now.
I mean, yeah, they do have buttons.
I like the addition of those to your buttons, basically. But I think it would be cool if they made that a bigger part of the class design. Yes, okay, they're dots with fancy animations, but that could be the main part of the class design, and it's kind of not right now.
I mean, like, not to armchair design Summoner, but the problem that Summoner has is it's got 3 different core mechanics that are not really connected to one another. You've got the trance states, you've got the dots, and you've got the ether flow. And none of those really interact with each other in any meaningful way. You just have to fire on all of those cylinders because they're just buttons you have. But I think that dot uptime charging a summon, and then you have summons that work like they do in every other Final Fantasy game where they're a much shorter duration, much more powerful thing. Make it work like trance, where you make it work like
the Bahamut summon.
Well, I actually don't think Bahamut summon is that great. It doesn't feel as good as Phoenix summon because Phoenix summon is newer, but like mix Phoenix trance and Phoenix summon into one button that you charge up, you hit Phoenix, your dots and stuff all become, themed fire stuff around being a Phoenix, and you blow things up with your Phoenix powers. And that feels really cool. You just have to figure out what you're going to do with a dot class that once your dots are applied. But
I feel like they figured that out. They just put it on Bard and not Summoner.
Right.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's space for something like that on Summoner, and also just coalescing the design into something coherent, as opposed to, because I think Black Mage is really coherent.
Yes.
Like Black Mage is probably the best designed class in the game because it knows exactly what it's doing.
And the key problem that I've always seen with Summoner is they fail when it comes to a burn phase.
Right. They lack the basic tools necessary to interact reasonably in the right situations. And I think that's what, Black Mages have Swift Cast for, whoops, I need to fix a problem. If your summons are your burst phases, then you hit a summon, you have a button that's like insta summon, just like instantly charge your summon and go.
Wow, yeah, I mean, that is also a problem with Dragoon, where Dragoon has to get into the burn. If there is like a coordinated burn phase, they have to get into it at the right time because they have to build their resources to get into it.
I would argue that except Samurai, most of the melee are
Backloaded.
they don't really execute burn phases terribly well.
Yeah.
Like they just have consistent, fairly high damage.
Yeah.
With possibly a button you can push or something that improves things.
Yeah, and even in the case of Samurai, their white damage is pretty good, so that even if they're in the process of casting the things to build up to the big thing, you're still doing decent damage.
But like, as a Dragoon, you can save Lance Charge. You can save things like, what is it? It's not called a Blood for Blood anymore.
I think it's called Lance Charge.
Oh.
And the Eye of the Dragon or something. Yeah. With the hardest.
I was more thinking the auto crit.
Oh,
Life Surge.
Life Surge, yeah.
Because like if you know there's a burn phase coming up soon, then maybe some of that stuff can be saved. Like for a monk, maybe you could save Brotherhood.
But yeah, I mean, I would like to see Dragoon. I would like to see Summoner reworked. I would like to see Scholar reworked.
I think broadly, I'd like to see a touch more bravery in class design. I understand the trade-off that they're making, and I don't think they need to go like Rift crazy by any stretch of the imagination. But I think they could push the envelope a little bit more than they have been, especially because the game is getting a bit older, and it feels like their only method of making every new content drop feel like every new expansion feel meaningful on a class level is to add more abilities and thus more bloat. And I haven't seen, like, that's a problem that you can solve with cleverness and creativity in class design.
I mean, they have done a couple of redesigns. Like, Dragoon is noticeably less bloated than it was the last time I picked up this game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and they've done a thing with a lot of classes where This is a new ability, but it just straight up replaces the old ability.
Yep.
Yeah, they've been doing that a lot more often.
So, like, it adds a new mechanic, but it just replaces the one that you were using before. So, like, it's no big deal. Like, heated rounds also got really cool animations with them.
Yeah, and replacements can be cool. I mean, I think that the more recent summoner replacement, where they took a mildly interesting but pretty lackluster animation and gave it a cool animation matching the ones that you never get to use in Ruin 4, is a good idea.
I do think they could stand to push to alter up their class design a little bit, because it does feel pretty dated at this point. But yeah, like, I don't know. Maybe we still have room for a hotbar MMO, and I would prefer if the game is supposed to support controller play, and their default controller cross supports 16 buttons. You try and keep the amount of buttons you need to be pressing in a combat down to around 16. That's my only takeaway. It feels like that's going to be a challenge for, especially for healers who have to have all of their crazy heal buttons and then also do damage on top of that. But maybe healers could stand to be a little bit simpler.
Another thing that I dabbled in this week is Bozjan Front. That is a weird game mode.
I mean, it's basically Eureka, but better.
Well, it's like they took Deep Dungeon and Eureka and kind of crammed them together in the same system.
Yeah, because basically in Bozja, I don't, however you pronounce it, you are running around looking for fates, and you do the fates, and sometimes when you do a fate, it causes a critical engagement to spawn, and then you can queue up for the critical engagement, and it picks people up to the number of people allowed for it to come in and do it, and it's basically a boss fight with mechanics. Sometimes with really punishing mechanics, like the red chocobo. The red chocobo is awful.
Yep.
But you've also got kind of an alternate leveling system sort of thing.
Yep. Yeah, metal.
What I would call the Eureka part.
Mm-hmm. Yep. You gain metal by doing events, and if you get knocked out, you lose a little bit, and if you have to respawn, you lose more. And by increasing your level, you gain access to additional quests and more of the zone abilities. Because there's that too, and that's also similar to Eureka, that you get little crystals that you can turn in to get abilities that go into a storage thing that you can then like select which ones you want to run around with, which are really handy because, you know, like I'm usually running around in there as a bard, so I sought a cure so that I can heal myself if necessary.
Yeah, or you can throw more tanky abilities on your bar as like a melee DPS.
Mm-hmm.
The one I see that people recommend is funny is there's apparently some sort of thing that's like a stance for tanks where you take like, what is it, triple or quadruple damage and deal double?
Yeah.
Yeah. People use that a lot for various things like sprite farming. Just let tanks run around with that and with Lost Reflect and go to town.
Yep.
Also, it's also like the easiest weapon farm ever for alts.
Yeah, that part is nice.
Yeah, the initial relic weapon, like you once you have access to Bozja, you can get it without even entering the Southern Front by simply turning in some poetics. It's like 1,000 poetics per weapon. Ooh. And that'll get you a 485 weapon.
What was it you were saying, Ammo? You started
Oh, it's also a good place to level alt jobs once you get them to like 71, because you can actually get XP from like the critical encounters and stuff. So it's a nice alternative to daily fairy quests.
Yep. Wait, or if you're level 80 on the class you're running around as, you will get allegory tomes. Allegory?
Yep.
Whatever the best tombstone, the capped one.
Huh.
Revelation. You'll get revelation tombstones. Like they not a lot, 1 per fate, 10 per critical engagement, but going to be doing a lot of those things, so it adds up.
It adds up over time, yeah. And the XP gain is pretty good. I mean, like, I did half a level in maybe 30 minutes in there. I mean, it's not the fastest way to level, but, like, it's not bad. It's...
Yeah.
And since the entire thing lasts for 3 hours, if you stay the entire time...
Well, and once, if you do stay the entire 3 hours and leave, you can always just go right back in. And it restarts the timer for you.
And then every time you basically gain enough metal to rank up, you can go back to town and rank up, and a lot of times there's a quest that'll open up real quickly that'll, unlock a new system.
Yeah, up through, I want to say metal level 10 is the point at which you gain access to the castrum, which is a big critical engagement, like multi-boss. It's basically a small raid that you can run. And then after that, there's another one, Delibrum Regane. That again, it's like a raid with traps in it.
Apparently, they successfully managed to incentivize people running castrum again.
I mean, people really want to run it, so
okay.
I guess so. I think they increased the metal gain from it a couple of times.
And
so
also the drops for the final relic steps, I think. I think it drops raw emotions now.
Mm.
Okay. For a while, there was the issue where people were still going into Bozja, but nobody wanted to do it.
Yeah, well, and they also, it has echo, so you can successfully run it with 9 people, because I have done this. That is the minimum that you could successfully run it with, because the final fight you need a tank and 8 other people for that fight. There's just no way around it.
Every time I've been in, there have been people forming groups for it.
Yeah.
I figured I wanted to probably be max rank in the alternate leveling system before I started doing any of that.
No.
I mean, it gives you a lot of metal, so...
Okay.
Maximum metal is 25. You're not getting to that without... I mean... You're not getting to that before Endwalker comes along without running some castrum. Not in Remain Sane. But no, as soon as you have access to castrum, you can safely run it. It's not super difficult. And once you've run it at least once, you can start getting coins that you can trade in for Bozjan armor, which I don't know if there's really much point to Bozjan armor at this point. I guess it gives you a little bit of haste. Yeah, it's for glamour. So, yeah.
I mean, the true end game.
Yep.
The outfits out of Zadnor are the ones that look like Final Fantasy XII outfits for Bosch and stuff. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and it does have, and like everything in this game, it does have its own story, which connects up to apparently Bosch is an actual person in Garlemald that these people have fought under the command of. So that's interesting. But it definitely links up with what's going on back in the Empire and the state of things and all of that.
Yes, it is yet another province that the Empire took control of. But it does make me wonder, some of the places we are going to go with the next story, if this is kind of a thing leading into it.
Yes.
I mean, what got me stuck is I never did the Ivalice raid series. And you have to have done that to even get the start of this thing.
Uh-huh.
Oh, yep.
Yep, because this comes this build stint comes directly out of all of that stuff.
I mean, this is effectively a continuation of the stuff from Stormblood.
Mm-hmm. It's a direct continuation of all of that. All the stuff with the I forget what the thing was called.
The Opera Airship.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the Aura site. Yep.
Credit where it's due. This game never drops a thread.
No.
That's true.
For better or worse.
You may
not remember where it came from.
Yeah.
Yeah. People who haven't made it to Stormblood and Shadowbringer, you may think that there are threads from ARR that just got dropped and that they forgot. Nope.
I mean,
it all comes back around.
they also know how much they mine their own content every time, which I'm reminded of every time they have a character come up to you and they're like, oh, it's you. Remember me? You changed my life. And you're like, I have no idea who you are.
But thankfully, usually one of the response prompts is a little bit of a prompt to help you remember who the heck it was.
Yeah, there's
As well as a few, hey, wait, you do remember my name, right?
for me it was Tuesday.
The worst part about that one is they give you the option of 2 different names, one correct and one incorrect, and then also I don't know.
The one I was thinking of was the Moogle one, where they give you 3 names, 2 of which are incorrect.
Random aside, if anybody hasn't seen the Mad Because Small series of YouTube videos, you need to watch those.
That was pretty entertaining.
Firmalbert. Because apparently there's a dude in Ishgard named Firmalbert.
I mean,
I found him today.
look, that the elves, the Ishgard elves, and the Limsa Rogadin have some pretty complicated names. It's just how it is.
Yeah, like this is a weird game mode. I want to do more of it. But it's weird.
Yeah, it's worth checking out.
It's better than Eureka.
Yes, you can actually run around solo and, do stuff reasonably. Whereas Eureka, I think maybe now you finally can, but you sure couldn't before.
Years after it's relevant.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the deal with Zadnor versus Bozja?
What?
Zadnor.
Zadnor.
What? What's Zadnor?
That's like the next level after Bozja, where you can go up to level 25 and stuff. And that's where the Dalriada is, which is like the 3rd mini raid.
Oh no. There's a whole area that I haven't gotten to yet. Oh dear.
Yeah, because I was thinking 15 was the max for where I'm at right now, isn't it?
Yeah, I think 15 for Bozja.
Maybe
and
for Bozja then, yeah.
Yeah, then 20, 25? Yeah, I think it's like 25. And there's the red chocobos there too.
Oh, of course he is.
They are never going to let that go.
No, they're not. And there's a few other fun surprises there too.
Okay, I finally now understand the relationship between Zadnor and Bozja. Because people use them like they're interchangeable.
Yeah, it'll be like a separate area when you go to queue in. It'll ask you if you want to go to Bozja or queue for Delibrium, or if you want to go into Zadnor.
I see.
I think I'm like only rank 7 now, so I have a ways to go. Okay, The Ascent. This game sounds familiar, but I'm not, I'm drawing a blank on what it is.
Apparently somebody wants to talk about this weird Cyberpunk game that I looked at a while ago and asked if it was good. So,
it's Cyberpunk Diablo. I mean, as a starting point. It's an isometric, I haven't played a ton of it, but it's a very recognizably Diablo styled isometric action RPG. Pretty heavy emphasis on shooting over melee.
It looks like it reminds me more of Alien Hive or Alien Swarm or whatever that game was.
Yeah. It's got a bunch of shared DNA with a bunch of different things. It's what I've played of it actually feels pretty good, and not just because it supports controller. I've played a few sort of Diablo alikes recently, and some of them are more sensible on a controller than others. It's if you like run and gun style isometric RPGs, it's pretty neat. It's a little finicky on the aiming, but it does a thing that drives me bonkers that Diablo doesn't do. I can shoot in one direction while moving in a different direction.
Can you not do that?
What, in Diablo?
No, in this game. Can you also not do that thing?
You can do that in this game. I can shoot my gun while moving away from the thing that's trying to charge at me.
Using twin stick controls, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Left stick is movement. Right stick is aim. If you're playing on mouse and keyboard, WASD moves and mouse aims, which notably actually makes this game playable for me on a mouse and keyboard if I wanted to. Because I can WASD move and aim with the mouse, and it works pretty well. I haven't gotten deep into like progression systems or anything, but I fought the first boss and had some interesting mechanics, mostly dodge around and shoot things, but dodge around and shoot things. It's kind of the quintessential Diablo experience. Then you get loot at the end. Mostly I mentioned because I feel like this is a game possibly heavily up Bell's alley. It makes me think of it kind of has the heavy, like dark feel of not Victor Vran, but what was the other one you were playing recently? Wolcen. But with like more sensible, what feels like more sensible controls than Wolcen, and a cyberpunk aesthetic instead of a fantasy one.
Yeah, I saw this one come across my radar, but I did not know anyone who actually tried it. So this is interesting.
Yeah, I've been on a cyberpunk kick for a variety of reasons, and was looking at like what interesting cyberpunk games have come out, and there's a lot of real bad ones, or at least real janky, semi-functional ones. So running across one that's actually feels good on first blush sort of stood out and felt worth commenting on. I don't know. I think it has multiplayer support.
It does.
Yeah, it says it's got 4-player co-op.
Yeah, and I bet it would be really fun 4-player co-op. Like, it was pretty fun running around single player, but I bet 4-player co-op would be really fun. Because the biggest thing that I ran into playing solo was because it feels like a mostly shooting oriented game. If you get swarmed, there's a bunch of mechanics. Like there's a core mechanic wherein you normally shoot from the hip, but you can aim, which drops your movement speed, gives you a real visible reticle. You can shoot things a little bit higher than base. So like if it's on like a level above you, you can hit things. And it deals more stagger damage. But it's really hard to use that when I'm playing solo because I have to move so much. Whereas if I were playing in a team, that would be a lot more functional. And I think it would be interesting. You'd get more mechanics, more ability to like play with the game mechanics in that way. It does. The one thing I did notice is it has some weird performance issues in the menu, and I couldn't figure out what was going on with that. Like honestly, it supports a lot of really high tier visual settings that I don't think are necessary in an isometric RPG. I kind of feel like there's a cap on how much ray tracing I need in my Diablo-like. So I just turned a bunch of settings down, but still, like, weirdly, I don't know if it's menus or the UI or what, but like there's some weird like performance issues I ran into. But it just released. They are patching it regularly. I don't know. It seemed fun.
Yeah, I was watching this when it was at E3, and looking at it now, I remember this one, and it also kind of reminded me of like Syndicate.
Yeah, there's a bit of that in there.
But I wasn't like, from the gameplay, I wasn't getting Diablo out of it, which now makes me significantly more interested in it.
I mean, like, bear in mind, I'm not a Diablo connoisseur, but three quarters isometric overhead view, run around dungeon-y spaces, blow things up, collect loot.
I still feel like that's a little different in games that are primarily about shooting. Like, there's a lot of games I've played like this that don't feel Diablo-like, I guess.
Yeah, which is fair. Like, it is more shooting than melee.
A lot of times games like this remind me of Smash TV.
I was trying not to go all the way that far back, but yes.
I mean, because really, Smash TV is the beginning of the shoot all the things, collect all the loot. You know, fight ludicrous bosses that take up multiple screens.
Yep.
It doesn't. I mean, my only like setting complaint about it is that I think that a certain kind of cyberpunk game leans a little bit too far into the how downtrodden can you possibly be as a player character, and thus doesn't really. It sort of makes its conflict a little one note in that regard, but like whatever. In a game like this, I don't care. You work in a mine or something and it sucks. Okay. And then other things happen. I haven't gotten that far, but
as opposed to you work in a mine and it's awesome, even though it kind of sucks, which is Deep Rock Galactic.
I didn't even realize this next card got bumped, but apparently it did. Civ 6 multiplayer?
Yeah, I've been playing some Civ 6 multiplayer. And there's a couple of interesting things I would note about it. Like, if you haven't played Civ 6 multiplayer in a while, now you have the ability to do synchronous, like, at the same time turns. So it's not like I take a turn, you take a turn, I take a turn, you take a turn, which is especially good in games where you're not trying to do PvP. Like, you're just like, yeah, we're going to be going up against the computer and enjoying ourselves.
Other game that does this very well, Mario Golf. It's great.
Well, Mario, the only time that you have that, I thought, was when you're doing the wild mode.
It's just, yeah, I mean, some of the modes, or if you're playing in 2-player mode, you can always do it. Okay, interesting.
But one of the other things that I noticed is that you can actually play on different difficulty levels. So, like, I'm playing with somebody who's never played Civ 6 before, and we're playing on different difficulty levels, and it is like all of the things that I associate with the difficulty level I usually play with are true in my game. And, like, I can also see that my friend is having a lot less difficulty with things like barbarians and other enemy players. So it's interesting how they're doing that.
Asynchronous difficulty is really cool.
Yes, I agree. It's super, like, the idea of doing asynchronous difficulty is very exciting to me. Like, I've never seen that before, and I think it's super rad. And anything where, like, the difficulty gets baked into, like, your capabilities are lessened or enhanced, like, as you go through the difficulty levels, should definitely consider, like, having multiple difficulty levels, like asynchronous difficulty levels for different characters in multiplayer. That's really what I wanted to talk about, and I've never seen it before, and it's really cool.
Yeah, that's a super cool concept that I also can't think of anywhere else I've seen it.
So does it, like, lower aggro radius of things on the map for the lower difficulty character?
No, it's just like barbarians are, like, you are stronger at fighting barbarians. Or you are, like, your units get a numerical advantage because you're on this level of difficulty. All of your cities get a production bonus. All of your cities get, like, some baked in happiness bonus. You need less amenities. Like, all of these minor little things, the game is easier on you. Like, you need to manage everything to, like, a less precise, optimized degree. There's a whole bunch of things that, like, difficulty, that, like, your difficulty rating determines how much amenities a given population size needs. And so the easier it is, the less amenities you need to keep your people happy. So, like, you can just turn that on in that game. Like, theoretically, you could do this in Stellaris, too. Like, I'm pretty sure there's some baked-in features where it's like, if you are on higher difficulties, like, in order to satisfy your populations, you need this. So, I don't know. I've, again, never seen this before. Anything that's doing like a 4X strategy game should definitely be looking at that. Also, Civ 6, really fun. I forgot how much fun Civ 6 is.
I have yet to play it. Sil got it for me at some point because she was super into Civ 6 and thought I would enjoy it. And I've not sat down and played it, but I mean, I used to play older Civ games. I think the last one I played a lot of was 4.
I think Civ 6 is the best Civ game. I think it is much better than any of the others.
Yeah, it took the stuff that they were trying to do in 5 and improved upon it, and 6 is really good.
Does 6?
I've played a lot of it.
Yeah. What does the base game of 6 have? Does it? It doesn't. I know environmental catastrophes are not in the base game. Is religion in the base game?
Religion is.
Yeah. I know because
I'm having trouble remembering what was added. The World Congress is not in the base game. I don't think so. The diplomacy victory isn't there.
Yeah. I know that this is relevant. Like, even I think more impactful is definitely the calamities, which really changes the game a lot.
Volcanoes,
early game volcanoes, early game floodplains, and then of course everyone industrializes and ruins the world.
Yep. Yeah, because Gathering Storm added the environmental catastrophes, all the power system, and therefore pollution due to that, causing rising sea levels. Also the World Congress, and then just some other new leaders. What did Rise and Fall add? Rise and Fall was what added governors and the loyalty system and the Golden and Dark Ages.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so those are not in this game.
Yeah. The
and emergencies.
Emergencies are weird.
Emergencies are fun because it's an opportunity for you to do a thing that scares all of the other civilizations, and so they all band together to try and stop you. But if you successfully repel them for long enough, then you get a bonus. It's great.
Mostly feel like I never want to be a target of an emergency unless I'm out far enough ahead.
It's a really good bonus.
Yeah.
Or if it's early enough in the game.
Yeah, that everyone's far away.
Or just that your opponents, haven't been able to do a lot yet. Because I mean, the most recent game I played, I was Teddy Roosevelt, and one of the civs nearby started attacking one of the city-states that was my buddy. So I declared war to defend that city-state. They had a city-state that they were suzerain of that started attacking me, and that was the closest thing. So the first thing I did was I took that city-state, which triggered an emergency. And so everybody declared war on me to try and free that city-state. And I just wrecked them all. It was nice. Great. And by the end of that, the entire continent was mine.
But yeah, I've definitely been jonesing for like the board game style, sort of like the 4X style game, and so I've been like dabbling with Stellaris, and Civ 6 came up, and that was fun. We've been playing a bit of that. I am playing as the Spaniards, so I need to colonize a new continent.
So, do each of the factions have like their own baked-in mission that they're trying to follow?
They all have their own baked-in advantages. Like they have asymmetric like units and like advantages, and so one of the big advantages for Spain is they get their cities, their colonies that are founded on continents other than their starting continent are all much more prosperous.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah.
There's that whole element of Civ, like that's still, it's still Civ. But yeah, you've got all the stuff like that, like, and some leaders have two different versions of that leader depending on, so for like which way you want to play them. Like for Teddy Roosevelt, there is the national parks creating version of Teddy Roosevelt. If you want to like push for like a tourism victory, a culture victory, or there is the Rough Rider version of Teddy Roosevelt if you want to push for a military victory. So yeah, there are lots of options, of how you want to play the game.
Do they still have Murder Gandhi?
I mean, Gandhi's still in the game. I haven't had an NPC. I haven't had Gandhi show up as an NPC in a long time, so I'm not actually sure if he's murderous or not. Like certainly his bonuses as written do not lend themselves to starting fights. He wants everybody to be at peace.
I mean, that was a bug in Civ 2.
It was a bug, but like
it was a rumor bug.
It was
not
a
actually
rumor bug that.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
No.
I think it was mostly just the AI in general had a tendency to be real aggro. So, and it was really noticeable when the AI was playing Gandhi, who's not supposed to be aggro at all.
I mean, Gandhi absolutely threatened me in Civ 2.
Well, yeah.
On the regular.
Yes.
Kodra, what is
Yes.
Historic Horizons?
Oh. So Historic Horizons is a new set coming to Magic to inject a bunch of cards into the Arena historic environment. So we've had Modern Horizons where we created a bunch of new interesting cards that you could play in modern decks. Now we're going to take almost all of those cards and put them into Historic Horizons. So you can play those cards in Historic now as well.
Hope you're ready for Sliver decks in Arena.
Also, there's a whole bunch of other cards that they added with unique arena-only mechanics. They are not printing these cards in paper because you can't play them in paper. They are breaking the rules of Magic.
Okay.
They've introduced to this end. They've introduced 3 new mechanics. One is conjuring, in which you conjure cards. And I realize that this sounds like something you've probably thought of because you've seen a whole bunch of cards that create creature tokens or land tokens or whatever, right? But no. These are cards. They go in your hand and you can cast them. And when they die, they go into the graveyard. And when they're exiled, they go into exile, which I realize is not a huge thing, but it's not something that the game has ever supported because like tokens exist in the battlefield, and when they're not on the battlefield, they cease to exist. So you could never like shuffle a token into your deck, but you can shuffle conjured cards into your deck. Another rule they're breaking is they are including. So the other thing about Magic is Magic has to be able to be played between 2 people, each controlling their deck. Arena now allows you to have a third entity, the Arena game mechanics, like the arbiter of how the game is played. And this allows you to do things where, like, you can make a decision in secret and Arena will hold you to that decision.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the big things is they've included this new mechanic called Seek, where Arena's like, we will define the parameters you're seeking for. So like you could be seeking a non-land card, or you could be seeking a creature with CMC 2 or less. And what Arena will do is it'll say, all right, I'm going to just randomly go through your deck and pull one of those cards out and put it in your hand. You don't have any control other than you know what the parameters of the Seek is. Also, I'm not going to reshuffle your deck.
So it's like a tutor that grabs an enchantment, but grabs a random enchantment.
It grabs a random card that meets its criteria.
Like one of them
in paper would be cards that like flip through the top of your deck and play the first card that
of the appropriate type. Yeah.
Except that doesn't work because again, this doesn't actually reorder or reshuffle your deck in any ways.
Well, and also it did, like like one of the examples of this is a creature that when it enters the battlefield, seek a creature card of the most prevalent creature type in your library. Like that's the other thing with a lot of these digital cards is the mechanics are things that would be just an absurd amount of bookkeeping and very difficult to deal with in paper Magic, but in digital Magic, it's fine.
It's trivial to do a query.
Yeah, like the deck knows how many creatures of each type are in it, so it can just go get one.
And the game engine itself is going to be the honest arbiter of all of this.
Yeah.
And so your opponent, and like this is fun because your opponent doesn't actually get any information off of this, but they also just know that like, the game is being fair because it's a fair game.
I mean, technically, like that one, your opponent now knows. Well, they don't know what card you pulled, though.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Like they could, like if you then play a creature, they could guess. Well, that might be the creature that it pulled, so that might be the most prevalent creature type in your library, but they don't know for sure.
And then the final one is probably going to be the most controversial one.
Perpetual.
This
is insane.
So, one of the core rules of Magic is when a card moves from one zone to another zone, it ceases to be the same card.
This is why flickering cards can be very powerful.
Yes, this is why like just taking a card into the exile zone and putting it back onto the battlefield is very powerful because a whole bunch of stuff will happen to that card. Like it enters the battlefield for the first time. It's a brand new card, so any counters on it go away, any enchantments on it go away. Like it's a very powerful effect to be able to just like take a card and put it into the exile zone and then put it back because the card has changed. It's obliterated and become a new iteration of it, except now perpetually applies effects to cards that are perpetually true throughout the rest of that game.
Yes. Like target creature's base power perpetually becomes 0. That card goes into the graveyard and you bring it back out. Yep. Still has power 0. Sorry.
You bounce it back to your hand, comes back, still has power 0.
Yeah.
The one area that I know is going to be controversial, and I'm really curious to see what they do about this, is Brawl. Because there is a card. They already
said they're limiting some of those cards for Brawl.
I hope they are limiting the ones that are like target creature gets -1, -2 perpetually.
Yeah, they said that. Like they don't want the cards that will basically kill your commander permanently.
Okay, good.
Yeah, that seems mean. But like also that you can, there are spells that apply perpetual effects to cards in your hand.
Yes. Yeah, like
choose a creature card in your hand, it perpetually gains haste.
Choose a creature card in your hand, it perpetually gains death touch. Are you playing a lot of first strikers? That seems like a smart idea.
First strike death touch has always seemed really dirty.
Oh, it's super dirty.
Yep. There's a lot of ways to do it in current standard. There's so much death touch in Forgotten Realms.
I mean, there's a lot of death touch in D&D.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. This is exciting. It is coming to us in the form of Jumpstart, which is weird.
That's even more hilarious to me.
I think Jumpstart is an incredibly great Magic format.
I agree.
So the problem I understand, like I'm going to be fine with it because I mostly don't play Historic and I mostly don't play like the quote unquote eternal arena formats. But because you can only get Jumpstart decks by playing in Jumpstart events and you can't just buy Jumpstart cards, it does make it hard to get access to those cards.
Yeah. Unless you just want to enter a bunch of events.
Or you're just spending a whole bunch of wild cards. But I don't know. I'm real excited for us to see what Ren and 6 does to the historic format.
What? They're bringing that too?
They said they're bringing most of Modern Horizons 1 and 2.
Yes, but most of does not mean all of.
I don't think we have a full list, but I would not be surprised if Rated 6 is on it.
I mean, we've got a pretty big list of cards here that I'm looking at. What is this card?
WREN.
Well, it's just, I mean, it's the actual images of the cards. What color is it?
No, it's a red
It's a
green
planeswalker.
It's a red-green planeswalker.
Tree-looking thing, swamp thing-looking thing.
I don't see it in Modern Horizons 1.
That's what it was from originally.
That's what it would be from.
Okay.
Yeah.
It does not appear to be in here.
I mean, it's completely legal in Modern, but it has since been banned in Legacy, which is a interesting place for a card to be.
Well, that makes sense because you know what is not banned in Modern, or what is banned in Modern but not in Legacy? Wasteland.
Yeah.
Renin 6 is a problem with Wasteland.
Hark, a topic has showed up on the list. What is this, Ash? Bullet Heart?
Bullet Heart is a level 99 game.
Oh boy.
Do you like playing board games? And do you like playing Toho games?
Honestly, it's do you like playing board games? And do you like playing puzzle games? This is a puzzle game in board game format dressed up like it's a Toho game.
Yeah, but notably, it's also a timed game.
Yes, although I did not play with the timer.
If you had played with the timer, would you have made it in time?
No.
Okay.
Not even remotely close. Because yes, first time you're trying to figure things out, maybe it's good to skip the timer.
Fair.
But it's intended to be played with 3-minute rounds.
Yes, use the soundtrack as a round timer in your games. Each song is exactly 3 minutes.
Yes, like, eventually, yes, I would like to get to that point, but right now, maybe not so much. Like, even the next time I play this game, probably not so much. But yeah, it's a relatively new level 99 game in which you are playing a shoot-'em-up heroine, and you are trying to face down the other people at the table who are also playing shoot-'em-up heroines. And you mostly do this by dodging all of the bullets coming at you and sending them back to the next person. Because it's a level 99 game, the characters are wildly asymmetric.
Mm-hmm.
The one I played involved mostly, like, her patterns to clear bullets involved trying to make certain sums, attempting to make the bullets add up to as much as possible in certain areas. And then based on what that number is, you could clear other bullets in your field. Character I was playing against had very color-based patterns. So like her shapes were simple, but they required particular colors. One of her powers was make this bullet into any color. Some of the other ones are like, this one has a weird sniper sight and clears based on where the sniper sights are in the field.
So on the scale of Exceed to Millennium Blades, how much is going on in this game that is impossible to keep track of it all?
I mean, this game would be the opposite end of that scale from Millennium Blades.
Okay. I mean, I feel like Exceed also doesn't have that much that's untrackable information.
I liked Millennium Blades.
I do too. I don't
But
think
let's be clear, that is probably the high mark for information you can't keep track of at once that is going on in front of you. From games I've played anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying that's a facet of of level 99 games.
Yeah, because Argent has that going on too.
Argent has that going on too. And Imperial has it going on a little bit less, but it's still there.
This one, the big thing is you have a randomized set of bullets that are going to come toward you each round. Like, you start with 10 in the bag, and you add some to your bag every round based on what the person to the left of you cleared, and a certain number from the center based on the intensity, which goes up each round. You may notice that this does not cause bullets to go away in any respect. So as you keep going, your field gets more and more full, and it gets a little harder to keep up. So it does have a bit of that whole bullet hell thing going on.
Sounds like Pong with a lot of balls.
Even playing without the timer, this was pretty fun, and I would like to try it again at some point. But it was really cool to see.
Sounds exciting.
Anybody have any short topics?
If you haven't played Monster Hunter Stories, you should go play Monster Hunter Stories.
I should play Monster Hunter Stories. I should also play Monster Hunter Rise so I can get a doggo. If the doggo is still available.
I think Rise is doing events kind of like the previous Monster Hunter games did, so it's not going to go away.
Okay, cool. I have been playing an obsessive amount of Final Fantasy XIV. Also, if you do play Final Fantasy XIV or have an active account, the Moonfire, whatever the summer event is, Moonfire Fair is going to have a polar bear that you can get as a mount, and it is the cute bear model, not the terrifying bear model.
I'm actually a little sad about that.
I mean, a white warrior bear would look amazing.
Yes, I do have the warrior bear, at least the baseline warrior bear.
I don't do enough 61 plus high level content to get the other one.
I think I've seen tanks farming Lakshmi for that.
That makes sense. It's a pretty straightforward fight. I mean, in theory, I need to farm a lot of birds, so maybe I'll get my other mount that way.
Those aren't 61 plus.
They're not?
No, those are 60.
Right, those are 60.
Doggos.
Yeah, farming doggos then. I know we got a bit of a late start, but also I think the other topics that are on the list are longer than 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
Probably.
So we should probably call it. And we've run over other times, so. Any final thoughts? Oh, hopefully you enjoyed the show, and we will see you again next week. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
See you.